Thank you, Claire. Well, the good news is we had a practice run on Monday, and Claire had pulled me aside before, or just after that section, and I've cut my slides from 61 down to 45. So I'm going to get straight into it. So creating value. A big thanks to Nuffield Australia and to the CBH Group, who have chosen to invest in a guy that's slightly on the older side of the average Nuffielder. I've had an amazing experience. But a bit about me and my wife. We farm in Narrogin in Western Australia, just a couple of hours south of Perth, and we're a completely gluten-free farm. So we're producing about 6,000 lambs a year, about 4,000 tonnes of hay, and about 12,000 tonnes of grain. And I've always been really passionate about connecting to my market. It's one thing I love about farming is you can kind of choose the bits that you love and pursue those within the farm. So I've always had this connection, and we do have gluten-free oats or wheat-free oats. We're kind of the main supplier of that into the Australian market. We've got the market in Coles and Woolworths and IGA mainly, and we do quinoa, and we have a great relationship with the biggest oat processor in China. We're a direct supplier to Seamold, who a wonderful family-owned business, biggest processor, and have 300 million customers, which is just a lovely relationship to have. So that's what's sort of driven my passion for this topic, is to see how can we bring this value creation across a whole commodity level. So last year saw me and us touch every continent in the world except for Antarctica. It was an amazing experience. As soon as I started thinking about this topic, I just got infatuated with certified Angus beef as a commodity that has created value above a commodity level. So almost instantly, Joe and I jumped on a plane and went to Iowa, Wooster in Iowa, in the US, to catch up with them. They were so generous with their time. Yes, back in the 70s, the American beef industry had a problem with consumer trust. Like, consumers, when they bought a steak, they just didn't know if they were going to have a good eating experience. There was really no trust from the consumer. So the American Angus Association in 1978 decided to set up a whole marketing arm called Certified Angus Beef, just with one really clear goal, which was just to create trust with that consumer. And they've been really focused on that one goal. It's quality. Like, if you invest in a certified Angus steak, you are guaranteed to have a good eating experience. And they've done a great job also of connecting the grower or the rancher through to the consumer. And with that, they've really focused on creating value without putting anything down or talking anyone down, because in a lot of cases, you might only get a third of your carcass into this grade, or 5 of your cattle out of the 20 you sent in. So there's no point in robbing from one industry to the other. So they've absolutely created a new premium for this product. We were just in a supermarket in country town in the US, and this was a steak. It was like $75 a kilo, like $120 Australian a kilo. They've just done a great job of creating value. They do this great program called Brand the Barn, where passionate ranchers, and they're all very passionate with their big hats and kids at 2 that are going to take over the farm, and they get them to write in with their family stories, and then they choose a few every year. They go around and they'll set up websites for these ranchers that tie into the Certified Angus Beef Association, and then they'll produce do all the photography, produce the great coffee books and promote it. They have 1.6 million social media connections a day. So just do an amazing job at creating that social connection. I love this part of our One Nuffield travels. Like, Joe and I, we didn't cram in 5 visits a day. We actually spent days where we were travelling between catching up with people and just really chatting and trying to understand what we've learned from visits. We had a day with the executive team of Certified Angus Beef, which is just such an awesome experience. And I was really challenged with how important is certification in this, and we sort of hit on the fact that the most important thing is building trust. Like, you've actually, as an industry, you've just got to do what you have to do to get trust in your product. And that may be certification, but it may just be storytelling. So I want to bring this back to my industry, which is grain, and we operate as a commodity, and for obvious reasons, we handle grain in bulk, but we have lost that connection to the people that eat our food. And I really want to challenge the industry with making a mindset shift. I want us to think, instead of thinking about how to sell grain, I want us to focus on solving someone's problem. So 5 months of travel into 10 minutes, I had some really seriously light bulb moments that are embarrassingly simple, that you kind of reflect on and you think, I should have known that before. But I'm really just passionate about these things now. And to summarise it in a few minutes, I just want to make a fuss. So firstly, as an industry, I want us to talk about food, not ag. Like, it was so apparent to me that value is created by consumer-driven demand, and consumers talk food, not ag, and so we have to talk a language that the consumer connects to, and we have to educate the consumer to make, better food decisions, and recognise the value that our grains bring to them. When a consumer sits down to make a food decision, they don't ask, am I going to have Canadian porridge or Australian porridge? They ask, am I going to have eggs or congee or porridge? So we need to give them the data and the stories to make those better decisions. And it's challenging in grain in that our customers are the processors, so we need to give those processors the stories that they can tell to their consumers. The U of fuss is about unmet need. Instead of asking how our grain compares to other suppliers of grain in the world, we need to ask the question of how it compares to other foods. The Californian apple industry thought that they were having a lot of competition from South American apples, but when they did an in-depth analysis of it, they found their greatest competitor was strawberries, and that really changes the way you target your marketing. I love the case study in New Zealand around rocket apples. They took a product that was in the fresh fruit section of the supermarket at $7 a kilo, and they repositioned it in a service station alongside a tube of Pringles at $20 to $45 a kilo. So they were really focusing on solving the problem of the traveller who was looking for a healthy snack, on their road trip. Really understanding what our customer's looking at is a really a great opportunity. I mean, I look at Asia, who, no criticism of the rice industry, but, their core grain that they eat is rice, and if those customers are focusing on health or sustainability, our whole grains from here have a really great solution for that. So, as a market, we often look at where grain is already sold. How can we undercut another market instead of looking at where can we shift consumption and replace it with something that we can solve a problem. The first S of fuss is storytelling. One of the great stories out of the UK at the moment is Wild Farm, where the Groove Armada, one of the guys from Groove Armada, Andy Cato, has started this regen farming system and producing regenerative grain. His storytelling is brilliant. I was talking to some supermarkets there, Marks and Spencer's, and they've been wanting to source produce from regen farmers, but they really have struggled to define that story. And Andy's just packaged this up so nicely, so those supermarkets can, tell the story through Andy as well. So he's done a great job. People trust him because he's outside the industry, coming in and telling a lovely story about ag. We just really need to champion the food that we produce and really get that connection. I mean, I really think, as a bit of a challenge to the people in this room, that when we get someone to ask us to do an interview or something like that, look up online about who their Associated Press are. So instead of doing an interview for Grain Central, ask them, can I do one for National Geographic or Time or Vogue China or something like that, and actually approach a different audience than just be talking to the same people as ourselves. So Wild Duck Farm do a great job of understanding that if we're going to make a sustainability claim, we have to back it up with data. Otherwise, we're actually adding risk to our customer. Guinness is out there measuring soil data, microbial health of the soil, bird numbers, and they're doing it to be prepared to support their brand. If they get threatened by a minority group saying, you're supporting a monoculture, they've got the data to stand up and say, well, actually, this is what's happening to the soil. And it's not totally been driven by consumer demand, but it's about protecting the brand. I asked them what they need from us, and it was just like data. The other thing was that it was really evident that a lot of consumers, they're concerned about sustainability, obviously, but they're not actually really chasing the carbon footprint of the food they eat. They actually want to know that there's a bit of love gone into the food that they eat, that we are thinking about them when we're making farming decisions on their farm. So telling those stories is just hugely powerful to a consumer. And and I had this realisation. I think we were in Tasmania, and as an industry, we're hell-bent on telling stories, trying to educate our consumers about the problems we have in our industry. And I think if we put ourselves into the footsteps of being a consumer ourselves, and we're going out to buy a car, we often don't really care about the issues that Toyota had in sourcing components through COVID. All we want to know is our families are safe and we can get to that beach in the outback. And I think it's really important. If we can shift some focus into telling good stories about what we do, I think it'll be so much more valuable. And the last S of us is structure, and it's probably just a challenge to the industry to say, have we got things in place to invest in this storytelling and make sure that we can focus this into the market? I would love to have a library of stories that's under one sort of united, food-based brand that we can tell, and then do some research to go and target where we put those stories into the market. Okay, so wrapping up, my takeaways is that I want to make a fuss. Let's talk about food. Let's solve someone's problem. Let's use consistent food branding. Let's back it up with facts. Let's package them up. Let's make them discoverable so we're telling those stories, not other countries. And let's build a structure that allows us to support this storytelling. That's it. I've had the best year of my life. Literally, cohort 24 is a very special group of people. We're all very emotional, I think. But this group of people that I travel with on my GFP are seriously some of the best individuals in the world, and seriously amazing experience. And for an old guy, which I was, lying next to Nick there in the front from Ireland, and he goes, you're older than my dad, and yet we're still talking to 3 a.m. after being out, drinking until late. And I'm just so appreciative for how they've let me in to this. And I also want to thank my family, my wife Jo, and my kids for just giving me the freedom to do this and the support. And also to CBH. We're very lucky in WA. We've got a farmer-owned cooperative that actually has control of our produce, often, sometimes right through to the supermarket shelf. So they've been great support and really get this story. So thank you very much.